Friends, welcome to this program on managing intellectual property. This program is part of the Masters in Distance Education program, course 418, Information and Communication Technology. What we shall discuss in this program is about plagiarism, intellectual property, copyright, and open educational resources, and where to locate OER and how to best utilize OER for your academic purposes. So to start with plagiarism, this is very important that we are cautious against the plagiarism rules, the copyright rules. The University Grants Commission, the UGC, has circulated also a plagiarism regulation, especially for MPhil and doctoral dissertation, that we have to categorically follow copyright rules, not to plagiarize, and use open education resources as much as possible, but with due acknowledgement to the creators and the authors. Therefore, plagiarism is very serious offense, sometimes a criminal offense, and therefore we have to guard against this. Plagiarism, as you see in the Jennifer Williamson in 2009, it's one of the finest articulations on plagiarism. That is a paraphrased someone else's idea or work, the writing out verbatim quotations without due acknowledgement. Sometimes it is told that up to 50 words we can pick up and put within quotations and quotation marks and give reference to the author and the exact page number from which the quotation has been taken. From one particular source, traditionally, we can pick up to 500 words, no more than that. So this is a rule that we must very seriously follow. And this plagiarism is becoming more complex when we go beyond print to audio, video, and web-based resources, especially resources which are available on the semantic well. But one thing is very clear, that everything that is available on the web, everything is copyrighted. So therefore we have to be very careful. Print, audio, video, graphics, animation, all kinds of database that are available, unless they are declared under Creative Commons as open education resources. Even citing a source incorrectly is also plagiarism. Making some changes to words and picking up and making some changes is not acceptable. You can get the idea from somebody's work and write in your own words with due acknowledgement to the author from where you have taken. That is permissible because that is your articulation. Or using so many ideas and words from a single source that they make up the majority of your paper, whether or not you provide citations. Even if you provide citations, you cannot pick up ideas from varieties of sources and present as yours and claim your publication or your presentation and claim an API or citation or so on and so forth as your work. It's not possible. Even for that matter, as you see, that self-plagiarism is also not acceptable. In fact, self-plagiarism, also known as recycling fraud, is the reuse of significant, identical, or nearly identical portions of your own work without acknowledging that you are doing or without citing your original work. Typically, self-plagiarism is only considered to be a serious ethical issue in setting where a publication is asserted to consist of new materials. So, meaning thereby, as you would read, meaning thereby, even if you quote yourself, you have to follow all the rules that are followed while you are copying or quoting somebody else's work. So your own work you cannot reproduce, meaning thereby that any publication that you have and for which you have claimed your authorship, you cannot reproduce that. Even the ideas you cannot reproduce and create another paper. So you have to be very careful, even self-plagiarism is concerned. As you see, the University Grants Commission in 2018 brought out a regulation by simply saying that different kinds of plagiarism are there, and to an extent reproduction is acceptable, that these days that your work has to go through what is called detection software called Urkund. For instance, every university is supposed to have either Turnitin or Urkund, for instance, to check that whether plagiarism has taken place. It's the responsibility of the supervisor as well as the student to go through that. And if it is crossing the limit, level 0 up to 10%, there is no penalty. Level 1 up to 40%, you have to submit a revised thesis within 6 months. Level 2 up to 60% plagiarized, you are debarred from submitting revised thesis. And level 3 up to 100%, registration is to be cancelled. If plagiarism is detected after award of the degree, the institution has to decide about the level of punishment. It is up to the institution to decide about that. If you go a little further, that in case of research publication, 0, no penalty. 1, withdraw the manuscript. Level 2, withdraw manuscript, withhold 1 increment, no supervision for 2 years. And if it is level 3, withdraw the manuscript, withhold 2 annual increments, and no supervision for next 3 years. And if there is consecutive 3 offenses, disciplinary proceedings have to be initiated by the institution, because by that time it will be considered as a criminal offense. So, and UGC regulation for the institution as well as for students. For the institution, there is appropriate software available for that. It should be accessible to all. Documents to be checked through plagiarism software, all the documents, including your thesis, your assignments, your coursework, your units, your chapters that you are writing for the institution for the study of the students. Plagiarism policy has to be in place. You have to submit in FlipNet soft copy of the thesis, and institutional repository of all the dissertation thesis made available within the institutional repository, and InflipNet is a national repository of theses and dissertations earlier maintained by the ICCSSR, Indian Council for Social Science Research. And for the students, the regulation 2018 of the UGC says that the student takes their own responsibility to do plagiarism check, that nobody would tell the students, it's responsible the student to do that. And in fact, for the thesis, you have to submit the plagiarism report, otherwise the thesis is not acceptable for evaluation. This includes all attributions that have to be made. We will discuss some of the attributions in this program. Bibliography references, preface, acknowledgement, terms, symbols, equations, data, and all kinds of things that are print, audio, video, graphics, animation, data. As I said, all these need to be checked so far as plagiarism is concerned. One is to mention the label. I think the plagiarism report, which is given to the student, mentions the label that what is tolerable and what is not, and submit the word file of the thesis to InflipNet after award of the degree or the conduct of the bibliography examination. Therefore, friends, beyond plagiarism, and therefore what is important is copyright. Any work that is created by anybody, the person holds the copyright and certainly the moral right. The right to control the use of the work of the creator, both economic as well as moral right, rests with the creator or the originator or the original author. The owner, the original author, can give, sell, license the right to be used by others, and it is certainly illegal for others to use without his or her consent. So therefore, copyright, I can hand over the copyright to somebody else, but the moral right still remains with me. And if I hand over the copyright to somebody else, that person owns that copyright even for commercial use, because copyrighted resources can be commercially used provided the original owner or the transferee decides that these can be used commercially. So, and for general use, it can be of 4 types. One can give a license, short license for a certain period of time, long-term license, retaining the copyright, and this is what is called a licensing agreement. The second category is that I can still retain the right, but assign or hand over the copyright to a new copyright owner, and there is a transfer of right from one person, the creator or the originator, to the person who would like to pay for that or whatever with an agreement to hold the copyright further. I can reserve the copyright, withhold the copyright to assign, so I decide not to. But in all the cases, the moral rights remains with the creator or the original author. So, given that plagiarism is not acceptable, given that copyright is a serious issue and a constraint, because of copyright, many students and teachers and institutions are not able to use copyrighted materials the way they would like to use. And therefore, there is always a challenge to access the textbooks. If textbooks are copyrighted, the issues of cost, access, frequent updates, copyright, of course, licensing, open textbooks, open publishing, e-books, and there is a freemium also. The Flat World Knowledge says that I can give you this free or at a lower price, but with a premium. The premium is that you have to buy something else. So if this is at a lower price or free of cost, you have to buy something else. Another book, another research paper, another service, another tuition service, another web service, or whatever is possible. And open access publishing these days, open publishing and open textbooks and open access publishing are becoming more prominent these days for students and teachers because of the cost involved, because they cannot access the updated materials all the time, and always there is an update available and there is a new price available. So therefore the old material goes out and the new material comes with a new price. And therefore it's not surprising that open education resources and capacity building to develop open education resources is becoming more prominent. So therefore, OER and quality of student learning outcomes, reduction in cost and maintenance of student learning outcome, there has been an increasing use these days of open education resources, and use of open education resources along with open pedagogy, meaning thereby there will be more open learning addressing individualized learning needs in a very open pathway, progressive pathway fashion could simply mean open education practices. So friends, as you see the terminologies that open access, open education resources, open courseware, and MOOCs, massive open online courses. So open access would mean sharing content, usually of scholarly nature, without a requirement for the use of an open license. So no licensing is needed, but you can provide an access to the people with certain conditions that this will not be commercially used. Open education resources would mean all kinds of resources, print, audio, video, graphics, animation, data, and a website, and so on and so forth, where the education content that is shared under an open license. Here, the question of licensing comes up, and we will discuss this licensing very briefly subsequently. Open courseware would mean that sharing of open content that is developed specifically to instruct a course. So, for instance, the MIT OCW, MIT OpenCourseware, when MIT in 2000 declared that some of the courses would be made open to the public, they started doing so, and subsequently most of the video lectures, which are very, very high quality, of MIT and Harvard, of Stanford and many others, they were now available, and subsequently these institutions developed certain platforms for MOOCs, that's the last point, which is called edX or Coursera and so on and so forth, including an individualized platform called the Khan Academy. So the MOOC would simply mean these are online open courses that are necessarily openly licensed, but which are available generally free of cost to a wider community all over the world. So a distinction between free and open source. The free software will be that those which are available with source code, use, modify, you can redistribute. These are called free software. But the open source software, the focus will be on software development and use it. So you can even change the code. So free is freely available, freely usable, but open is that even you can change the source code and change the total dynamics, the origination of the software itself. Proprietary software would mean that you can use for a fee. One has to pay for that. Say, for instance, in an online platform, the WebCity and Blackboard, you have to pay for that. And there is a campus edition available or student edition available for which you have to pay per student. We were offering a postgraduate diploma in e-learning when the Inter-University Consortium was established, IUC, which is now Center for Online Education. I was the founding director, and we started, in fact, my colleague started, and we took it up at Staff Training and Research Institute a postgraduate diploma in e-learning, which got the Best National Award through competitive process as the best innovative ICT program in the country. We used an open source platform called Moodle, whereas when I was teaching at Fulbright in US, for instance, I was teaching through a proprietary platform called WebCity, which was competing with Blackboard, and now WebCity has bought Blackboard, and that has become almost a monopoly, the largest platform so far. But still, Moodle remains as the free open source platform, as the largest used open source platform in the world. And therefore, finally, the open education resources would mean that this is an internet-empowered worldwide, I stress internet-empowered worldwide community effort to create an education common that anybody could join in, and what results is what is called an education common, that the resources which are commonly available and freely available. And this reference is from Wikipedia. OER, as you would see, that these are teaching, learning, research, or even training materials in any medium, digital or otherwise, that reside in the public domain or have been released under an open license that permits no cost access, no cost use, no cost adaptation, and no cost redistribution by others with no or limited restrictions. What are these? Let us examine. So, as you see, that open education resources that you can use for free, you can contribute for free. These days, earlier you can download freely, but these days, whenever you are downloading anything as especially open education resources, it will ask you to upload something as a contribution, as a moral responsibility to contribute something. The intellectual property which you are using for free, you have a responsibility to contribute to intellectual property through too. So, but while using the open education resources, quite a few things have to be kept in mind. Friends, general understanding is that OER is freely available, and if we have an OER policy in the institution, we can use them freely, free of cost. And if we are individuals, we can download, we can go through, we can study, we can redistribute, and so on and so forth, if these are open education resources. If these are copyrighted, you can only download and read. Anything that is available in the internet is copyrighted. You can download, you can use it, you can read it, you can use for your own understanding and knowledge. But you cannot commercially use it, you cannot distribute to the large scale, to the large number. But there are certain issues and problems concerned with open educational resources which we need for self-learning, for distance learning, online and blended learning, even in a flipped classroom learning. The first point is simple, that if the language is very difficult to understand, we need to simplify it, and therefore we need to spend time and money. It needs to be conversational and engaging. There have to be a lot more activities built into, and those resources or materials, print, audio, video, or whatever. And if those activities are context specific, they belong to United States or to China or to somewhere else, they are not applicable to Indian context, we have to adapt. If it is providing only a single perspective, but we expect that the resources should provide all the perspectives that are available, all the dimensions of understanding, especially in history, for instance, multi-perspectives are very important. Culture, they have to be culture and gender sensitive, then we have to examine if they are at all. And there is a hands-on in context, and there is an issue of plagiarism, which we have already discussed. So therefore, all these issues, and you can think of much more, all these issues would determine whether actually we can use an open education resource, or in other words, an open education resource is actually fit to be scrutinized based on these principles, and therefore that can help us as teachers and students to use open education resources. And therefore there is an OER pedagogy today, which is based on 5 R's: retain, reuse, revise, remix, and redistribute. If a material has been developed, you can retain the ownership and control. You can reuse, appropriate use and reuse. You can revise as per the needs and requirements, those materials. You can remix those materials with your materials, with somebody else's materials. You can also reuse that, and you can also redistribute. But there is a legal aspect involved in that. This is called a licensing. A copyright is called C. A copyright free, or which is called a Creative Commons, is called double C. and open educational resources are declared under CC, and the priced and copyrighted materials are declared under C. So therefore C round and CC round, that will distinguish whether the material is copyrighted or whether the material is copyright or copyleft or copyright free, which is called Creative Commons. The licensing agreements, international platforms or authorities, agencies are available called Creative Commons, Education Commons, or GNU Free Documenting License. And the URLs are given there. You can study about those licensing systems in more detail. The Creative Commons has got 4 derivatives within that, 4 attribution strategies within that. Number one, first one is attribution that credit the author, which is called BY. If you write BY, we are acknowledging the author. Non-commercial, don't make money out of that, certainly you can't, and you have to write NC in those materials at the beginning. At the copyright page, this has to be written. If no derivative, no changes, that you don't allow any change, but you allow that this can be used by others, but no changes can be made, you have to say write ND, or what is called an equal sign, is equal to sign. You can also SA, share alike, that same license for changes. That if I'm taking a material, OER material under SA, and I'm also making changes, or I'm adding to that or doing something else, I have to declare those materials as SA2, and I cannot do it freely. So therefore, all these 4 you have to very seriously consider insofar as OER is concerned. You have to study in detail what I described, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kind of derivations that are there, and you can study in detail, that is available on your screen. And so also, these Creative Commons licenses that you can do something as long as you can do this. This is what I described, and this is from legal point of view is written there. For instance, in CC, that BY, you can keep, share, sell, remix, and revise, and so on and so forth, up to BY and so on and so forth. So friends, how to evaluate an open education resource is fit from all points of view insofar as quality is concerned. The Achieve organization has given us an evaluation rubric which we can use to study whether an open education resource is qualitatively rich or not. The degree of alignment to standards that we have already discussed. The quality of explanation of the subject matter, of course, is very important. The utility of materials designed to support teaching, whether it is facilitating teaching and learning. The quality of assessment involved in those materials. The quality of technological or interactivity within that, whether interactivity is built into that and there is an interaction possible within those resources. Quality of instructional and practice exercises, of course, yes. Quality of activities. Opportunities for deeper learning, higher order learning, self-regulated learning, self-directed learning, and what is called a metacognitive learning, higher order learning. Those possibilities of facilitation are there or not, one can also evaluate. Then assurance of accessibility. So friends, what I'm saying here is in this PowerPoint is that are MOOCs really open? MOOC are massive open online courses, or these are simply massive online courses, they are not open. One has to very categorically distinguish between MOOC and MOOC MOOC. Whether it is edX, Udacity, FutureLearn, or edu materials, Coursera, and so on and so forth. What I'm simply saying is most MOOCs are open only in the sense of free enrollment. They are only open to that extent. Insofar as the resources are concerned, one has to examine based on the criteria of Achieve that I presented a while back. So open access books that are available today, and some of the best possible sites I'm quoting to you that you can use for open access books. These are called textbooks of different disciplines. The Wikibooks, the Project Gutenberg, very authentic, Google Books, and American Institute of Mathematics also, and aviation handbooks and manuals, free books for doctors, lyrics open textbooks, Bloomsbury Academic, and so on and so forth. They are freely available to you. These are the large repositories that are listed here, including the OER Man Finder, the Merlot, in which advisor board I was sitting for some time, in the editorial board also I was sitting. Merlot is a very excellent, authentic repository that you can access. Connections, OER Commons, these are available to you, and you can access these sites and use for yourself. The University Grants Commission, through a Gazette notification that is in front of you, that the UGC said 20% of the credit hours students can take for their study passed in the Academic Council from the national platform called SWAYAM. And SWAYAM is nothing but a combination or repository of MOOCs, which are called XMOOCs. Elsewhere, I was presenting the Connectivist MOOC, the George Seaman and many others, Chip and Downers, they've been talking about a collaborative, connecting, engaging, creative MOOCs. Instead, we have edX, Coursera, and so on and so forth, based on which the SWAYAM platform has been developed. This is the first time a national platform which provides common minimum quality across all the disciplines, and therefore students up to 20% can take credits from the SWAYAM platform called, they are also called MOOCs. So this is the SWAYAM platform that you can study. You can even do certain courses from the SWAYAM platform itself. Therefore, friends, finally, I must submit that the institution must have an OER policy and gradually move towards open education practices beyond plagiarism, copyright, intellectual property to more of open education practices. And you can, these two aspects by Ehlers and by Cronin, you can study in detail subsequently. And the Commonwealth of Learning is promoting and offering a free of cost Learn OER online course, which you may like to go through. So friends, thank you very much. What I have presented here in this program is about plagiarism, copyright, intellectual property, the textbooks and open textbooks, open publishing, and finally leading to open educational resources, and gradually through vis-a-vis open pedagogy to open educational practices. Thank you very much.